Hello and welcome to Screaming Mimes, where we talk about true crime. Today's story is one that's a little close to home. It was a brutal attack that happened in the LuluLemon store that I used to go to. I've not been back to that store ever since the attack. My yoga class was actually kind of close to there. And I remember, I guess it would have been the week after the attack. We had a little sit down after yoga where we had to discuss our community and trusting people and who to let in and who not to let in, and yeah. Suffice it to say, you guys probably know the story I'm talking about. It happened in Bethesda, Maryland, and Bethesda's kind of a ritzy place. There's a lot of, especially that area, there's a lot of shops there. There's obviously, if you know the case, there's an Apple store next door. There's a ton of stores, and it's a very safe, upper class neighborhood. It's not a place where this type of stuff happens, which was another reason it was so weird. Yeah, so let's get started. So Saturday, March 11th, 2011, LuluLemon manager gets to work right before 8 a.m. I think she walks to work. She gets to the door and it's not locked. So right away she knows something's wrong because the store's supposed to be locked the night before, right? She opens the door and the place is a complete mess. There's stuff scattered everywhere. There's a television set. There's like a TV screen that's shattered on the ground, on the floor. I actually think I would have left and called the cops right then and there, but she continues on. So she gets toward the back of the store and she sees blood. And then she sees a lot of blood. So there's like bloody footprints everywhere, and she hears groaning. And she just gets the hell out of there, right? Good for her. Good for her. She gets the hell out of there. It just so happens there's an Apple store next door, which I also used to shop at. Yeah. So there's an Apple store next door. They were just launching the iPad 2. So this was a while ago, obviously. Launching the iPad 2, there's a line of people standing outside. And I guess I admit she's overwhelmed. She's like not quite sure what's going on. Someone comes up to her and is like, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" And she says yes. And so this person, brave as he was, actually goes into the LuluLemon store. Still, I think I would have called the cops, but he volunteers, goes into this LuluLemon store, which has not been locked all night, wanders through, finds blood everywhere, literally everywhere. There's blood splatter about 6 feet off the ground. He finds 2 people in the back. He finds one person who's not moving, who's in a pool of blood, face down in a pool of blood. He also finds a woman in the bathroom. Her hands and her feet are zip tied. There's a slice in the crotch of her yoga pants, and her arms are above her head. So this guy's freaking out, right? He runs out. He tells the manager to call the police immediately. Police show up and they go through the crime scene. They find 2 victims. First is Jana Murray, who had just turned 30. Jana was super fun-loving, outdoorsy, straight-A student. She was a hiker, a rock climber. She loved kayaking. She'd been skydiving, bungee jumping. She just went bungee jumping for her 30th birthday. She was a tap dancer. She's a grad student at GW, which is George Washington University, and was just weeks away from graduating. She was 5'5" of just blonde, fun sunshine. She passed. Second victim is 28-year-old Brittany Norwood. She was found still alive. She was the one in the bathroom. Her hands, arms, and chest are sliced, and there's a huge cut on her forehead. She was one of 9 kids, a star athlete, a great student. Brittany enjoyed the finer things in life, so good food, good clothes. She was planning on getting a job as a personal trainer. One of her friends had just started working as a personal trainer and loved it, and she had recommended Brittany for the job. And so she had already had her first interview, and she was planning to go in for a second interview. Like, they had actually called her to go in for a second interview right before this attack happened. Brittany's sent to the hospital immediately. The police show up to take her report of what happened, take her statement. Brittany says, everything happened as it normally does. We had our regular business day. We closed up for the day. We both left. And she says, I realized I left my wallet with my Metro card, and she was going to take the Metro home. She was like, my wallet and my Metro card were still in the store. So I called up Jana. I was like, hey, Jana, can you let me back in the store for a moment? I lost my wallet. And so Jana's like, okay, come on in. So she opens the door. They go back in. They search for about 10 or 15 minutes. And in the middle of their search, 2 men show up and force their way into the store. These 2 men are covered in black, and they've got on black ski masks. One is tall, one is short. One of them has a backpack. They both, by the sound of their voices, are probably white men. Brittany says one of the men started cutting her and raping her, and then he forced her to the cash register and the safe. And she said that she could hear her friend Jana screaming as she was being tortured. She then said that they threw her into the bathroom, and she basically lost consciousness until around the morning when the police showed up. She kept telling the police that there was so much blood, that she'd never seen this much blood before, and that everything was all her fault for forgetting her wallet, and this never would have happened if it hadn't been for her wallet. And then she asks how Jana's doing. She's like, is she okay? How is she? Is she gonna make it? It's at this point, I imagine, they tell her that Jana had passed, sadly. I mean, really, Brittany had no way of knowing. She was in the bathroom all night. She blacked out. There really was no way for her to know. And so they start Jana's autopsy, which is horrendous. I'm not going to go into all the details. It's very gory. They were able to count 331 wounds, separate wounds. And it seems Jana was alive for all but one of them because of the amount of blood that pumped out of her. Her heart was still working up until the last wound. Of these 331 wounds, 105 of them were defensive wounds to her hands and forearms. The forensic pathologist said that she had never seen this many defensive wounds on a victim before. Police said that roughly 5 to 10 weapons were used in the attack, and a significant portion of the weapons were identified as those that were in the toolbox at the LuluLemon store. So the investigation's still going on. Brittany goes home a day after the attack. She goes home from the hospital a day after the attack. Her wounds are considered superficial. Police continue their investigation. They find a size 14 men's shoe in the store. It's covered in blood splatter, but the soles are completely clean, which is weird. They find that it matches one of the set of footprints in the store. So remember, the store's covered in bloody footprints, right? This matches one of the prints. And they can't figure out why the shoe's in the store. So the footprints actually go up to, there's two sets of footprints. None of the footprints actually leave the store. They just go up to the doors. Police then reviewed some of the security from the Apple store, because I guess they have better security than the Lululemon, but with all those electronics, I can't blame them. So they did manage to identify 2 individuals dressed all in black, with black hats, ski hats, and a backpack. And one was really tall, one was tall, and one was short. And it was around the same time as the attack happened. So police kind of stake out the Lululemon store, and these guys actually come back. Police start to question them, and the guys, it turns out, work at a nearby restaurant. And yes, I will tell you, there's tons of restaurants in that area. But yeah, they work at a nearby restaurant. They're like, hey, we're busboys. That's why we're dressed all in black. They review more security footage from the Apple store, and they find that the Apple store employees were actually still in the store at the time of the attack, and they heard the entire thing. There's footage of them listening in at the wall in between the stores. I don't remember what it's called, the firewall maybe? I don't remember what it's called, but there's a common wall, and they're actually listening to everything going on. The male employee said he heard some sort of agonized breathing, like when you can't breathe, and then he heard one exhale. The female employee said she heard someone say, "Talk to me, don't do this. Talk to me, what's going on?" And then she heard, "God help me, please help me." And yeah, they still didn't do anything. The male employee said he thought it was just drama going on next door, which is very unfortunate. Later, during the trial, they said that they heard thudding and grunting and squealing, and it sounded like something heavy was being dragged across the floor. Yeah, you would think they would have called someone. But to be honest, this type of stuff doesn't happen in Bethesda. It's ritzy. It's not like, other counties, like PG County, you would expect something like this to happen. It's true. Ask anyone. But Bethesda, this is absurd. So I guess they had a security guard there with them. And the security guard did nothing. I think he was watching videos. At this point, they realized the weapons that they can identify all belong to the toolbox in the store, and that the shoes belong to the store, and the zip ties that Brittany was tied up with belong to the store. So if this was a planned robbery, what did the robbers bring with them? Or a planned attack? What did they bring with them? Something doesn't quite add up, right? Did they just show up to the store and decide to do whatever they did with what they found in the store? Also, where are the actual footprints? Where are the actual footprints of these 2 murderers? Because the police identified one set of footprints that belonged to the shoes, and then another set that belonged to Brittany. So if they're 2 men, did they not have shoes? Did they not walk? Did they levitate? Are they vampires? Do they fly? There were questions. And then they started looking at the actual wounds, right? So all of Brittany's wounds were really superficial. I mean, she went home from the hospital a day later. And Jana's wounds, unfortunately, 331. That's a lot of wounds. And then there was the description that Brittany gave of these two men. So the physical description, I don't know if there was anything wrong with that, but the actual description of their personalities, they were like, they're quintessential evil. Like, they have no distinct personalities, no positive traits, no, I don't know. It's not like one guy tried to stop the other guy or anything happened. It's like just these evil people came in and did horrible things and then they left. And there's no trace of them or anything they brought with them. So at this point, police start to suspect that maybe Brittany is not the victim. Or is not, maybe Brittany is not one of the victims. At around the same time that all this is going on, police find Jana's car. Jana's car had been missing. And they find it a few blocks away at another place I used to frequent all the time. They find it a few blocks away. They find blood in the car. So they send this blood out for analysis, and it turns out it belongs to both Jana and Brittany. Things are not looking good, Brittany. Things are not looking good. Everything's starting to point at you. And nothing you said makes any sense. All right, so the police talk to Brittany. They're like, as opposed to asking her questions and trying to get information, it's more like, different kinds of questions that they ask. So they're like, by the way, do you know anything about Jana's car? Do you know what it looks like? And she's like, yeah, I think I've seen it like once, maybe, kind of, sort of. And they're like, have you ever ridden in Jana's car? And Brittany's like, oh no, I've never ridden in the car. And so right away, they know something's up. Brittany must know something's up, right? I think she kind of knows something's up. So she calls up the police department and she's like, oh, I have more information. She goes into the police department with one of her brothers and one of her sisters, right? And so she goes in and she says, I suddenly remembered I was in that car. And there was a police officer who saw me, but I made sure I never spoke to him. I never spoke to him about anything. And she says that the two men realized that Jana's car was parked illegally, and to avoid, I guess, any attention, they told Brittany that she needed to go move Jana's car to a legal parking spot, and that if she wasn't back in 10 minutes, they were going to kill her. And so the police were like, but you could have gotten away, right? If you had the car, you had the keys in the car and you'd left. You could have gotten away, you could have driven to a police department, you could have gotten help. And she's like, oh, no, they said they were going to kill me. She's like, they had my wallet, they had my home address, they knew where I lived. They were going to kill me. And so, yeah, things are not looking good for Brittany at this point. She's a horrible liar. She's a horrible liar. Police officers then ask, they're like, Brittany, is there anything you'd like to get off your chest? And she's like, no. And so they try a couple different tactics, and eventually they try to work on the brother and sister. So they start presenting evidence to the sister. And, they're like, well, Brittany said this and it didn't make any sense. And there's this evidence and that evidence, and things are kind of weird for your sister. So apparently Brittany's sister loses it at the police station. She has to leave the police station. So then they work on the brother and they start presenting some evidence to the brother. And the brother doesn't quite lose it. What happens is the police leave, right? And so they leave Brittany and her brother in the interrogation room. And Brittany the entire time keeps asking her brother, she's like, do you think they have cameras? Are they watching us? Do they know what we're saying? And the brother's like, no, we're fine. But the brother straight up asks her, like, did you have something to do with this? The first couple times she denies it, but then she comes back with, I just don't want anyone to be disappointed in me. Yeah. That is a very loaded statement, Brittany. That's a scary statement. That leaves me with questions. Like, obviously right now we're talking about the murder, right? Or she's talking about the murder. And she's saying she doesn't want anyone to be disappointed in her if she may or may not have killed someone. But then also, did something else happen that she doesn't want people to be disappointed in? Like, something must have triggered her, right? If she did in fact do this, something would have triggered her. Maybe there was something she didn't want to get out. Maybe there was something poor Jaina knew. And the brother keeps asking her if she was stealing from the store. In fact, he asks her this several times. Like, several times. And then he says, it's obvious you're lying. And he says, when the police ask you a question and you look down and to the left, that's a clear sign. That's your tell. That's a clear sign that you're lying. And he's like, you need to pick something in the room and focus. And that way no one will be able to tell. He says, I lie all the time. I know these things, okay? So, look, bro, no, you cannot do this, no. I mean, you somehow managed to get something like a confession out of her, but teaching her how to lie after she confesses this horrible, brutal murder it's insane. It's insane. I mean, I get she's your sister. It's hard to let go of family. I know. But everyone has a line, and you just crossed the line. It turns out Brittany had been fired from the LuluLemon store in Georgetown, which is not that far. And her co-workers at the LuluLemon store in Bethesda had noted that several of their personal belongings were missing from their purses every time they worked with her. So the managers had already suspected her of stealing from her coworkers. They had a meeting earlier and they decided that they needed to do something about her, but they needed to catch her red-handed. It turns out that Jaina was the one who caught her earlier that night. Jaina wasn't even supposed to work that night. She had switched shifts with another manager, which is unfortunate. But then we'd be sitting here talking about the other manager. But yeah, so Jaina had caught Brittany with yoga pants in her bag. Still had a price tag on them. There were a bunch of lies. She's like, oh, no, I paid for these already. Oh, I bought them from a different manager. Oh, I did this. Oh, I did that. There was no record of the transaction. So Jaina then called one of the other managers and was like, I caught her. And I guess, Brittany had this big big personal trainer job lined up, which was going to pay her a lot more than working at Lululemon was. So I guess she couldn't be caught with this. Yeah. Yeah. Believe it or not, Jana's family found out about the confession at the funeral. So hard. There are several accounts of her. She was a known liar and a thief, and probably a narcissist. There's one account of her physically assaulting her ex-boyfriend, stalking him, and then breaking in, stealing a bunch of things. There was a restraining order that she violated. There was an arrest warrant in November of 2011. Brittany was convicted of first-degree murder. First degree because she actually left the store. They both left the store. And then she made that phone call to get back in. And it seems like in between those few minutes, she'd already planned a decent chunk of what she was going to do. January 27th, 2012, Brittany was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jana's brothers have since created a foundation for her. It's called the Jana Troxell Murray Foundation. I don't know if I pronounced that properly. I apologize. It supports and promotes the interests and passions that enrich Jana's life and makes them available to others. So yeah, that was this week's case. And I have questions. I have a lot of questions. I still don't understand how this happened. I don't understand what happened, why it happened. I mean, is it just narcissism? Is that just all it is? Like, I don't know. I feel like maybe there's a history of violence that hasn't been uncovered yet. Like maybe something happened to her. Maybe there's some sort of head trauma. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any answers. She wanted to become a personal trainer. So this is what she did. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. But yeah, that's my old hood. It's not even the hood. It's like the rich part of town where all the stores are. Yeah, I still have questions. This one's gonna bother me. I still, like, we were all shocked. We were shocked when it happened, and we thought it was two men. And then, you know, all of a sudden it was like, well, it's not two men. One of the women was involved, and then, it was inconceivable. And I feel so sorry for the young lady who lost her life. I feel so sorry. It makes you want to think twice about confronting people, doesn't it? That was our story for today. This one's gonna leave me unsettled for a while.